Hello, everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. It is Friday. Welcome to the weekend, almost. So this is fmtrain.tv, where every day we do great FileMaker training. Today's topic, you can see it right here. We're not quite ready to kick that over. Let's do some announcements first. So let me hit the little press button here. What does this button do? Here we go. So upcoming broadcast schedule. Today is going to be open Q&A FileMaker Claris/Claris server. This is mostly for you, right? So there we go. Awesome. Pretty good. Open Q&A today with Jacob Taylor. He is like really awesome. Then another awesome person is Christian Schmidt, Monkey Spread Software. The guy, he's in Germany. He's really smart. He builds like the most essential Swiss Army toolbox of plugins for the FileMaker platform. I highly recommend that you buy it. Take your money out of your, I know you don't want to be separated from your money, but let me simulate what this should look like for you. So you have your wallet, and you take out some money, here's some money, amount of money out of your pocket, and you put it into the Christian Schmidt piggy bank and buy his product, because it really solves a huge number of gaping holes in the FileMaker platform. He is set up for Monday and Friday next week. In the middle of that, we've got Nick. I don't know entirely what Nick's going to do. We've been having some of you send files that you need help with, and he has selected, I think, Hot Air Balloon Kin. I'm not sure, but he came back to me and goes, yeah, I'm going to use Hot Air Balloon Kin's solution, but it needs so much help. It's going to be like a 5-week project or something, right? So I want all of you to know that Ken will be, it's like one of those deals where, like that TV show where they have the makeover the home, and people go to Disneyland for a couple days, or they go somewhere, their mom's in the hospital and they're gone, and they come back and their home has been rebuilt. Totally free, right? And they turn a TV show and everyone's crying and weeping and all this sort of thing. So that's what's going to happen with Ken. Ken won't be here for the next couple weeks. Nick is going to rebuild his to Nick standards and then give it to the Hot Air Balloon Ken. And hopefully Ken will like it. We hope. So it should be educational as well. So Jacob Taylor's here with us, but so as we get into open server Q&A, I want to call out that there are great blog posts created by the folks at Claris International, sorry. And if I go to the web page here, I've actually bookmarked it here, the Claris Engineering blog. Generally, I will tell you that the Claris Engineering blog is pretty awesome. They have an article in here that I looked at and I was like, oh, so what we have is they have an article that came out yesterday. It's like brand new, never been seen before by anyone. And what this basically says is running FileMaker Server in Linux because we ain't making FileMaker Server for Windows anymore, right? Or not making the Claris server for Windows anymore, right? And so Claris is here to answer questions. However, I started reading through this because we are, the low-code platform, right? So we're doing low-code stuff in here, coming through here, and I got sudo app update, sudo this, more sudo stuff, IP, bunch of stuff here, then some other, a YAML. I don't know what a YAML is. Is that like a yam? Do we eat those? I don't have a clue what that is. So I suddenly occurred to me that this might be over my pay grade. For those of you who have ever seen this, this is MacGyver. Spoof on MacGyver. This is what happens when he was looking inside a nuclear weapon, trying to understand how to disarm it. And he's a 3-wire guy, and that's me. So I am looking over here at the Claris Engineering blog, wondering what YAMLs are, what camels are, what 3 to 33. I know what DHCP is, but I don't know DHCP4 versus DHCP5.
Differently from 6.
Differently than, I know what IP6 is, but is that like
those are pairs? Yeah, they go together.
They are pairs.
So
good. Okay.
Yeah, so DHCP4, right, goes with IPv4 addresses. You might be handing out DHCP6 for IPv6.
So we have a net plan. I don't know what a net plan is. It's like, as opposed to a bad plan, you have a net plan. So, and by the way, I'm scrolling here and I'm only at the top up here. So what Claris is trying to do, for all of you wondering about this, is that they don't want to do build Windows installs, because it takes time for them to QA the Windows server. And technically, if you could get stuff to run on Linux, it's cheaper. However, there are certain corporations out there, about half of their customer base, it's like, we're not using Linux because we're not authorized, because the IT guys and gals do what they want to do. So Mr. Taylor, do you want to chime in here now that I've kind of teed up a really hot tamale opener here?
No, I was excited. I haven't reviewed the blog post yet, but I was excited that they're
Okay.
writing up how to do
The
a Linux
Linux guy
container.
is excited, which is cool. I'm glad he's
Yeah,
excited, but I'm like going, dude, where's the green wire?
yeah.
The guy goes like, oh, there's
There,
50 green
so
wires, right? So
uh, uh, right, and so what you have now, one of the previous blog posts was how to do the same thing on Docker, right?
mhm.
Those are just different container systems, essentially. The Docker, the company, which you may have heard in the news because they put their foot in their mouth recently. If you have not, that's fine. You don't even need to go look. It's not relevant. But Docker is just another application that does the same thing. You can put your little software in a little box and move the boxes around on different servers and stuff. And it's super helpful for deployment, especially if you have tons of FileMaker servers or want an easy way to deploy them.
Okay.
As Richard demonstrates, Linux containers are less on the easy side of this spectrum as far as technical complexity goes. However, they're awesome. You can run them yourself. If you are used to dealing with stuff on Linux, they may be accessible to you. Good luck for the Windows people. That's all I have to say.
Does it work? I've had some people say this is a great idea. Other people saying good luck with this.
It's
So
yeah. I mean, and for customers, they're just different deployment choices, basically, like how to deploy the software, the server-side software. You can do Docker and Linux. You can do Docker on Linux. You can do LXC on Linux. You can probably do LXC on Windows. I don't know, but maybe. Docker has a Windows build, and so you could run. And for those of you who are familiar, you may even know Microsoft has shipped Linux in Windows. I'm ignoring the technical details of that, but that's basically what they're doing. You can do Ubuntu. It's a Windows subsystem for Linux. And so and that works pretty well, but right, it's a little awkward looking, basically. And so it's what it'll end up being it's back to the original conversation we have with any of this stuff. What what can your organization support, right? If you are a Windows only shop and you're tied to FileMaker and FileMaker Server or Claris Server once we get there, you're going to have to decide what that deployment mechanism looks like because it has to be something that your IT people can handle. However, if they give us nothing that's usable, right, you're going to have some challenges there. I don't know what that's going to look like going forward. Probably Docker is a lot easier, but maybe someone figures out how to do a Windows subsystem for Linux Claris server. That would be very humorous, but it's probably possible. So
Ruben says, what brand or type of hardware does RCC use for hosting Claris FileMaker servers? We use whatever the Amazon is selling in their EC2 instances, right?
yep, yeah, we don't use any on-site anything anymore. We do T3s because they're cheap, frankly. If you want horsepower, muscular horsepower for a server, you can do different instance types than a T3. A T3 they're great. They're a good value basically. You won't have any issues, but if you have super duper mega heavy script server side and stuff like that, it may leave something to desire. It may leave something to be desired at some point. Yeah, T3s.
Yeah.
We had an earlier question that I think got slid by in the process from Topcat. Today I received a new Mac Mini. I used the migrating assistant to use all the programs and files from my old computer to the new one. Now some of my bigger but also smaller FileMaker files are corrupted on my old and new computer. Do you have an idea how this happened?
To directly answer the question, no. The longer answer is don't do that. If you're moving a FileMaker server, it should be a fresh installation every time. None of the migration utilities I'm aware of will successfully bring a FileMaker server from one Mac to another. That's the end of it. The longer thing is I don't know why it corrupted the source files. That's probably a really good question to have answered at some point. But
yeah, well,
for you,
normally
anyway.
what happens is I would say 95% of the time when a file is corrupted, it was not shut down before it was crashed or moved or duplicated or something like that. If you close the FileMaker file and you move it and then you reopen it, or if your server crashes and you always restore from a backup, yeah, so that's important.
He
So
says it's
yeah, so
he
let me
says
just
it's pro only.
yeah, but so okay, here's the problem with so you have this intervention moment. So this is a FileMaker intervention. Hello. Everyone, if you don't use FileMaker Server and you only use FileMaker Pro and you're building a solution that you care about and FileMaker Pro crashes, you should take those FileMaker files and throw them away and restore from the last backup. And if you never made a backup, then you've got kind of a problem. If you don't pay attention, don't shoot yourself with the product, okay? It's super powerful, it's super awesome, but there's a little level of responsibility that's required to use it, right? And so if you use FileMaker Server and it crashes, roll the last backup. If you're using FileMaker Pro without any server and it crashes, roll the last backup. So when I'm using Pro only on my computer, and it's an important solution, about every hour or so, I quit FileMaker, I hit Command D and duplicate the folder that wherever the profile, not this application, but the FMP12 file's at. As soon as it duplicates the folder, I throw it in the trash. I don't delete the trash. I throw it in the trash just to get it out of the way. And I know if I crash, I can go back to the trash and dig out one that wasn't crashed. It's so important. In the last week, I've been hit with 3 people, maybe some of you, and I'm not picking on you, 3 people who want me, Richard, okay, they want me to find an engineer at RCC who can coach them in FileMaker 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, okay? No one left at RCC who's alive or live and works for RCC can do that except me, and I am not cheap. So if you want to use software that's 30 years old to save money.
And then the other thing is, so for transferring files from computer to computer, like I said, so if it's Pro only and not server, if it uses, this is actually the discussion about what's the Mac backup thing that does snapshotting, which is why we tell people not to use it, Time Machine. So if that backup, or not the backup utility, but the file transfer function that you're using fundamentally relies on Time Machine, that's not even certified for backing up your files in the first place, so please do not use it. We just say when we don't host on site anymore, but when we did, we do not enable Time Machine. We turn it off, capital O. One, because it slows servers and all that kind of stuff down, but more importantly, it does all of the work that it does basically uselessly, because it will not and cannot give you good backups of a FileMaker file, Pro or server. I don't care. It actually isn't relevant for that part of the conversation. It can't do that for you. So if the file transfer thing that you're using, which I don't know how that works on Mac because I don't use it, if that relies on a Time Machine system and that's how it does the transfer, there's no guarantee that it snapped a closed, right, good backup, if you will. I know you're doing it locally in Pro, whatever, but it has to be closed when the Time Machine thing ran. If that wasn't true, you didn't have a good backup, and so that's why you have, at least on the destination side, that's why you have a corrupted file, because you didn't have a good copy in the first place. You have to be really careful with stuff like that. FileMaker's not, FileMaker databases are not consistent on disk. That's why Richard gets very agitated about making sure FileMaker Server is running your backups and all of that sort of stuff, because it can flawlessly and reliably run backups without issue. And so if you move those backup copies from some machine to some other machine, assuming nothing was messed with in the, during the transfer or what have you, yeah, you should have perfectly working files after. But again, not anything that's snapshot based. I'm talking copy and paste level stuff. So.
Yep. So yeah, so just so you know, it's we've always cautioned. So the people here, you've heard us talk about all these kind of do's and don'ts and how to keep yourself out of trouble. So I'm not picking on Topcat if he's not using FileMaker Server. Just make sure that you have backups. And if you crash and you open up the crash file and it's fine, then probably it's fine. But if you do that 10 times in a row, I guarantee that you're probably going to start inducing little damaged bits into your FileMaker file, right? And eventually that builds up and becomes a problem. So I'm not picking on anyone, but it's a good question, right? Time Machine, if it grabs a running FileMaker file, will create a damaged copy. One, I had a customer lose an $80,000 database because their IT guys, which handled the server on a Mac server in their office, I still remember this day because I got calls at 3 a.m, people in an absolute panic because they decided to run an update on the operating system, and Time Machine wasn't backing up the FileMaker files because they were in a directory that Time Machine doesn't back up. Time Machine backs up your documents, things like that. If you're a Windows person, imagine your desktop and your documents, directories, things like that being backed up. But if you have this obscure folder and applications, FileMaker, C drive,
It's
program,
library. Yeah.
library, depends on Mac or Windows, but yeah, way down in there, Time Machine or these other apps don't know to go in there. That's where the databases live. So they, in this case, Time Machine wasn't backing the files up at all on an external drive, and then they ran an update which blew out that folder, and they lost the entire $100,000 database. Right? It was a giant nightmare because it's Time Machine, it's Apple, it should be good. No, 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 no. Right? All
You
right.
can't assume that. You have to test everything. There's actually a thing people don't do anymore that we still do, actually, that we RCC still do, which is testing your backups. I know, we get agitated. I love to tell people, hey, talking about backup strategy, trying to consider different, we'll say bad outcomes. Obviously, you're hoping for the best, but you want to consider various bad outcomes and how your backups do or do not address those issues and stuff like that, foreseeable issues and non-foreseeable ones. But one of the things that goes with that is we say, backup, 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 do all this different stuff, address all these different cases. There's a backside to that, which is at some points you do actually want to occasionally go in and check that your thing's even working, because placing files in a directory doesn't mean there's not problems. Occasionally you'll want, and this is a thing that really big businesses tend to do, because they'll, go test their tape backups and they have stuff like that. They go test it. They have to go, you have a zip of this or that thing, you're keeping it, it's 3 years old. You got to go open it, see if there's files in there. Does it, is it functional? Can you actually restore? Like, is that possible? And you don't have to do it all the way through, right? Like roll your database back or something like that. But at least going in there, playing with it, making sure, extract the database out, do something like that. Confirm you actually can get a working copy out of whatever backup system you have decided to utilize. We have recommendations, obviously, but everyone does what they're comfortable with. So you need to go in at some point and say, yep, that basically works. Cool. Double check it.
For us, we do it monthly, but for some organizations, even once or every 6 months would be good, because nothing you want to do is build a house of cards, right? Like playing, the house of playing cards, and you think you have backups and the whole thing it's shenanigans. It doesn't work. It's not functional. So real quick on screen, Jacob, if you look at my screen, we have the T3A, and Jacob and I were discussing the minimum instance size type. So for the record, some of you guys said, what kind of server Jacob does all the official stuff at RCC. I tell each of my professional senior engineers that they should have their own FileMaker server that they run at home, that they can play with, so they have a level of comfort with it. I actually not only do that, but I also have a set of my own database. Sometimes you see me show some of my aviation databases, things like that. A lot of times those are hosted on my server. I have an M1, Mac Mini M1 with 16 gigs of RAM that makes backups every 30 minutes or every hour, and I keep weeks of backups. So I have a big bunch of drives on the side of it. But for most organizations, not for personal testing, things like that, they're using Windows or Linux, and I recommend Amazon, right? Even Google the other day, back in the day, this is another thing that came up with Claris, right? And Apple has a bunch of data centers, their own data centers. They have a bunch of shared data center infrastructure with Amazon. Then somewhere along the line, Claris decided that, we don't want to do that. We're going to get in bed with Google, who does Android, for whatever reason that they came up with. And then apparently, over the last probably 6 months, they came to the conclusion that they really should be on Amazon, which is the leader in outsourced or rented space in farms and data centers, right? Large instances, we're recommending. Okay, so let's get to the relevant Claris stuff. And we have questions. I'll bring her out. She can answer questions. We have some important updates on the Claris server stuff at 29 minutes into the live stream. So, Jacob, do you want to explain your discovery and why you're doing kind of an urgent update to the RCC servers?
Yeah, sure.
And frame the fact of who it affects.
If you all are on 19.6, for example, we didn't deploy the 0.1 because there's always a bug, and they almost immediately cut a 19.6 too. at least for server. I forget how Pro went on that. It's been a little bit, but so we're on 19.6.2. Claris put out a 19.6.3. And it fixes a couple of bugs, whatever. And one thing that they noted, just it's the top note, but it's not explained. All right, so on here, some little performance issue, a stability fix, blah blah blah. But this top thing, right? They updated a library. That doesn't sound that interesting. It's a socket IO thing. It's how some back end real time communications type stuff happens. You can use that library for a lot of different stuff. It's probably their admin API or the streaming something. I'll just say that, which will be either WebDirect updates or data API or something like that, whatever. So the note that you see here is what we got, right? That's what everyone sees. Socket.io was updated from, to some version. They don't say what version it came from, but to that one. And this doesn't engender any kind of your hair should be on fire, but it actually should.
How did we determine that there should be a fire? Do I look up socket.io 454 or what do I do here?
Yeah, so socket.io is an open source library. You can Google it. You'll find their GitHub. On their GitHub, if you look at version 454 release, you should look for GitHub. You're looking for their source code. There's a GitHub icon on the top right hand of the page. It looks like a little black circle thing. So right side releases, it's right below your mouse. I'm just going to direct you and then we can look at this together. And then we're 454, so scroll a little. I'm going to skip past it. There's 453, 454. All right, halt. Thanks. Perfect. So do you see that right there?
Yeah.
So those are security vulnerabilities so bad they were assigned CVEs, which means that it's a coordinated vulnerability disclosure. And that is because it's a fairly reasonably bad security problem. And it's a severity high, as it says in the top right hand. If Richard doesn't scroll past it. Yeah, you see there's a little high. Right. Yep. So if you're on 19.6, you should update your server. That's the short version. The longer version is it would be lovely if that had been communicated, because I had to go look up why is socket.io being updated to 454. Like, what does that mean? I don't know. Maybe it's a bug fix.
Last one was severe. This one is critical.
Yeah. So anyway, update your server.
Okay. Now I have a question. So everyone here, I don't want to start a panic. So if they have a version 19.5 or 4 or 3, are they okay?
Claris did not cut an update for those versions of the server software associated with this. And so I actually cannot answer the question because I don't know. If Claris failed to cut an update for it, I would say that would look bad. I think the implication, however, is that they are using an older unaffected version of the library. But someone would have to go verify that.
So what I want to do is find out what
that.
the supported versions of FileMaker are. So if they have a supported version, now this is also was shocking to a number of people this week that I called. They talked to me, wanted me to work on FileMaker 10.
Yep.
So Claris supported versions because in life of the okay. Yeah. So this 19.0 is dead. 19.1 is dead, which means that what this means is that if you find a critical bug or if they find a critical severe security vulnerability, they're not going to fix it because it's already end of life means it's dead. It should be dead date, right? And then you've got March 23, which is this month, 19.2 dies. So we would assume that if you they found a security vulnerability here, they patched it very stealthily, didn't say anything about it. Didn't actively say there was anything about it. And then we have 19.5, 19.4, 19.3. They didn't patch these with that stuff in there. So we would assume that that security vulnerability is in effect those versions because they are still supported, right, Jacob Taylor?
Correct.
Cool. All right.
Yep.
So, yep, all sorts of good stuff. Let me see. Let me pop open Discord.
Do we have some questions? I think Margaret was bringing a few over.
We have, they're not related to this per se, but we have questions.
Okay. Sure.
We have questions. We have questions.
I have questions.
I'm going to ask the YouTube one first, and we'll get to Discord stuff. Would you use AWS if you were in South Africa or a more local solution?
Well, you have to.
if
What's the
they,
closest region? What's the closest region?
yeah, I was going to ask if they have a region in South Africa. Yes. Otherwise, no. Basically, the server's gonna be too far away. You'll have a bad performance experience purely based on latency between you and the server.
So,
So
real quick for everyone, we are going to have an upcoming live stream where we're going to go over, we're kind of rehash some topics. We shot some videos like during our 30-day kind of deep, introduction to FileMaker, and we've been going back and looking at them, and some of the videos were not as well organized. Also, something that's come up is that we have a number of people who don't understand what latency is and why it's important, and what are the important numbers. Just because you're a network person and you know what latency is, can you tell me the relevant kind of speed limits and or issue areas of what speeds affect FileMaker, right? And so the trick is that if you, to answer Jacob's Taylor with more precision, is that if you have a place where you want to park a server, it doesn't matter, Amazon or anywhere else, before you buy the server there, you need to determine the latency between your location and where they're at. And so a latency, if you're using starting point and you're a really thoughtful developer, then 70, 80, 100 milliseconds or less. If you're kind of like Joe Schmo and you just got to throw it together, then you want latency that's 10, 15, 20 milliseconds, maybe 30 on the outside, okay? If you have a server, so obviously the smaller numbers, the better, right? Idea if you could have zero latency, which is theoretically impossible, but if you could have a zero latency, that would be like the instant Millennium Falcon, even faster than the Millennium Falcon speed, right? So if you have if I measure the latency on the other side of my home office from my Mac Mini server here, I will have a latency of half a millisecond to 1.5 milliseconds. If you have a 5-story building, like at some customer location, and you have a server on the top floor and you're on the bottom floor and you have routers and things in between, 2 or 3 milliseconds, maybe something like that. Across town, 75 miles away to another town, maybe 30 milliseconds. When I go from here to like Santa Clara, the South Bay, San Jose, California, 25, 30 milliseconds if everything's working correct. Across the United States, one side to the other, 70 to 80 if things are going good for you. If I go from California, where I'm at here, to Mumbai, India, it's 332 milliseconds on average. It was insanely bad. So there you go.
Yep.
So you're looking for a low number, you need to test it.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's the big takeaway. It's you have to figure it out. It may also depend. So if you're in a country where like we can use South Africa as an example, it sounds like Azure and AWS both have regions there. Awesome. So you get to pick whichever's your preference. Fantastic. The thing that you'll still want to consider is whether you're going to have a good experience with that. Because if you're in Joburg and that's not where the region is, you may not have a good connection over there to where that other data center is. If it's in a different city, or both, all of these regions are in Johannesburg and you're not.
They've
You're
got
in Lesotho
something
or
down there.
something.
There's a dot on the bottom of the continent down there, but I don't
Yep.
know. I mean, once again, it doesn't matter if it's next door to you. You need to measure the milliseconds. Obviously, if they're really close, you could assume the milliseconds are good.
Oh, it's in Cape. Okay.
I don't know
Yeah,
what
Ruben
this
says
is.
it's in Cape
It's a
Town.
dot at the bottom of a really crappy map. So there you
Yep.
go.
There's a list somewhere, but yeah. It's probably the regions and AZs at the top. They're the secondary. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, you got one
I
right
was like, you
there,
zoomed
Cape
past
Town.
it. Yeah.
So Cape
Yep, there
Town.
you go.
Now, there's 3 availability zones there. Availability zones doesn't matter. What they're saying is that when they say it's a region, that's a loose topic for a group of buildings which are probably unmarked and heavily refortified with security guards and machine guns and stuff, right? So 3 availability zones means there's 3 buildings. They all kind of do mirror replication, stuff like that. So if one of them gets blown up, the other 2 keep it going. If you blow up all 3, then you're out of business down there.
Yeah, the big factor in Amazon terms specifically is that it is a region and not an edge location.
Yes.
A region means you functionally and usually have access to the full, I don't know what, we're probably over 2,000 different services that Amazon provides now. But you have access to essentially all of them. An edge location, it's usually much more limited, and you have to go pick and choose what you can use or what you get access to. Like for example, we're over here in California. Los Angeles is an edge location, but it's not a full region yet. I actually expect that might change at some point, but it hasn't.
Yeah.
So you can
Yes.
only do, they have like a list of services that are available like in LA. So if you're doing things, you want maximally low latency or minimized latency for your LA workloads, because you have an office there and you need to do cool stuff. You're going to have to pick and choose what you can actually do like 100% locally. So
Generally, that we haven't, at least I haven't seen a lot of EC2 availability in edge locations. And edge location, for those of you who are not technical, so everyone except Ruben, and maybe Lynn and a couple other people here, Stu, who are really, they're really serious professionals about this stuff. If you are, I'm leaving you out of list. Don't be offended. An edge location is like when you click to download a video, an RCC video or a cat video from YouTube. Understand that at the end of the day, there really is a single central server somewhere that has cat videos, but they can't have all the cat videos, all the YouTube servers, everyone reading off of that. So what they do is they replicate the data to the regions, and then they forward from the regions, they actually replicate the data to servers at the edge location. So you download the cat video from the closest server, which is frequently a smaller edge location. And all it does is it's just like mirroring the video. So you only have to download it from the closest location. You don't have to, like if you're in Johannesburg and you want to see Richard Carlton's Enterprise stuff with Jacob Taylor, if someone is already in Johannesburg, watch that video, it's already saved there on those servers. You would go and YouTube would say, hey, it's a closest server where you can watch this, Johannesburg. It does this behind the scenes at light speed. And you watch the video from here. You don't go all the way back to Cape Town, South Africa, then all the way to the United States trying to download the video from there, right? Makes sense? That's how all this stuff, all the Apple TV, all of modern entertainment works this way. And so it's called a content delivery network essentially, but the idea is that they're making the distance that you have to go to get that content as short as possible.
Mhm.
There you go.
Yeah. I looked at deploying FileMaker servers on edge locations in Amazon, and just for giggles, basically, hey, we could put one in LA for an LA customer or something like that. And the basic issue that you run into is they don't provide the newest stuff, even when EC2 and things like that are available to you. And so you're going to be on what is essentially legacy hardware, and that's slow. It's slow. It's a short version.
Okay.
So
real quick. So done again, which is Pavel says on Twitch, he has a question. I'm using the latest version of FileMaker Server 19.6.3.3 build 302. Unfortunately, web publishing engine is no longer working. Period. I cannot activate the primary computer. Period. It's not available. Close parentheses. FileMaker WebDirect can be activated. Can you help me? Question mark.
I mean, maybe. You're going to need to look and find out why WPE is failing to run. So
it should
the toggle,
they haven't gotten rid of it.
No, the toggle for WebDirect can be activated independently of WPE, but as you've probably noticed, it doesn't do anything if Web Presentation Engine is not enabled. Web Presentation Engine relies on Java either being installed like broadly on the system if you go download like Corretto or something like that, or an Oracle one, whatever. Or you can, like if you follow Claris's directions, they'll have you go, I think it's called Adoptium now. I'm sorry if I'm misnaming it. They've renamed it 3 or 4 times in the last 2 years. But it's an open source Java. It's not anything different than any of the other things I've said. But you'll give it a zip and it'll store its own copy of Java specific to FileMaker Server for you. It's good also.
Can I suggest that you pop open? You can share your screen, but pop open a FileMaker Server. People to see this a little bit.
Oh, sure.
The admin console for.
Oh,
like
yes.
It doesn't matter what admin. They're all the same admin consoles mostly. Can FileMaker 19.3 can 19.3 server run on Windows 2016? Supported operating systems. Click here to see what operating compatible latest version of Claris FileMaker. Okay, I'm going to push the button here for you. Window. Okay, here we go. FileMaker Server, and this is 19.4. So I can't answer about 19.3 because it's not supported anymore, right? Alpha Cover 1973, they dropped support for 19.3 this month. And so they're not going to answer questions about it besides good luck is what they're going to tell you.
Yeah.
So
The 19.3 is on the old tech specs.
Yeah, so if you look right here, 19.4, 19.5 work on 2016. So I would guess 19.3 works on 2016 because it's still supported here. So the answer is probably yes, right?
Yeah. I deployed a lot of 2016 that should be supported. I don't see why there'd be an issue.
Let's transfer command to Jacob Taylor. Mr.
Awesome.
Taylor, you have the control of the
I'm
Starship.
putting you over here. We're going to do share screen.
Any other questions we have? We're trying to be useful here, folks.
Oh, we absolutely do. I've been sitting on like
Yeah,
three.
there's a ton of them. Yeah.
Question. I am running FileMaker Server on a Windows machine. I have an SSL installed and working fine when I go through FileMaker Pro. But when I go to access through WebDirect, I'm getting an error that there is not an SSL certificate and the link in FileMaker Server for WebDirect can't be accessed. Any thoughts on this would be helpful?
Are you doing it over the internet or locally?
Inky, are you doing it over the internet or locally?
You mean the WebDirect access locally on the machine or over the internet?
It will matter if you're, because you can override it in Pro, right? The local IP versus the DNS address. Both have to line up 100%. Browsers are even more persnickety, but Pro you can override. If it's a local FileMaker server. If you try and do that with a on LAN, and you're trying to get into WebDirect, your modern browsers will get really mad at you and probably block you, because it's insecure. So this is a short version.
They are
I missed the question. Did he buy the SSL or is he using the kind of built-in test one? I know with plugins you install them in more than one place. Do you install the SSL in more than one place on server, Jacob?
No, you put it in the admin console. You've got to completely reboot everything afterwards. But
his answer is that he has tried both and he bought SSL.
You should provide a more complete error message or something. That would be incredibly helpful. If you're using Safari, use a different browser to get a better error message. Safari basically has one error, which is politely F off, and it won't tell you too much about what the actual problem is. Chrome, Firefox, whatever, any Edge, doesn't matter, but any alternative browser will give you more detail in its SSL error stuff as to what its problem is, what its issue is.
Taylor, can you slide your window to the left side of your screen because your face is on the right side, and so your face is covering up. All right, so show us where the SSL goes just for fun, real quick.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So you can do details here. Like you can see we have ours, it expires and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You go to configuration. Yes. Yes. Over here on the left side, we're going to go to SSL certificate. So you can see ours. Let me make this. So you'll want to import. There is also a non-obvious part of this, it's not obvious to users. Let me bring this dialog up. So you see we do import certificate, which if you did this on the server, this is probably how you did it. One thing that's not obvious here, most things imply the intermediate certificate is optional. Browsers are the only thing that will not always, but mostly successfully figure out what they're supposed to do if you don't put intermediate certificates in. Pro doesn't. Pro will complain at you. That's probably not the problem Inky has, but just to note it for the people watching, you want to have all three of these filled. So
okay.
When
and
you're,
then the other question
importing.
we want to run back to was the web publishing engine, where that was at. We could just see that real quick in terms of.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we go over here. I'm going to go to configuration. I'm actually going to go to connectors because there we go. So you have two toggles. As I mentioned, this top one here, the Claris FileMaker WebDirect, you can turn this on or off. That is turning the feature on and off. If web publishing engine is not enabled, or in this person's case, it won't turn on for some reason, for example, then you don't have WebDirect anyway. So
next question, Stu.
Okay, Stu's got a question. We have a
there's a previous one too. Yep.
Okay.
I occasionally lose connection to my local server 2018 Mac Mini with FMS 19.6.2, even when the file is open in Pro. It usually comes back when I log into the server via screen sharing. I've confirmed that screensaver and sleeping are off. Any recommendations on how to troubleshoot?
Make sure you're not running over Wi-Fi. Confirm it's actually not going to sleep. FileMaker Server, obviously we tell you to turn all of that off for hopefully the obvious reason, but FileMaker Server theoretically actually can go to sleep and come back again. Don't do that. It's dangerous. But for example, if you go look in the FileMaker Server event log, and that's what happened, you will see that represented. You will see FileMaker Server going, oh, Matt going to sleep. So that's one thing.
Or is that in the okay?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, if you're on modern versions, correct. You'll go select and you'll do event log. I was going to show something else because this is a Linux machine, but yeah, there is an entry in the event log when FileMaker Server is told to go to sleep by Mac. Yeah. That's one thing.
This interface sucks, but ideally it'd be tightly compacted and look real nice. But
it is.
That's a little better.
They don't. Yeah, they haven't designed any of this stuff to like work well on browsers that aren't on like 4K giant mega screens, which is really funny because that's like the opposite of all servers ever. Lots of people will plug in like ancient 800 by 600 screens to their server because you don't.
Yeah.
You do that once a year, like so why buy the fancy monitor? But
more questions. Yeah, more questions. Next one, Margaret.
When it comes to when it comes to corruption, long story, but I didn't have a good backup strategy for a while, and I didn't know about it being bad to open a crashed file. It's still working and is our main file. I'm rebuilding it from the ground up. My question is, is there anything I can copy paste from the bad file into the new one? I know it uses XML for newer stuff created so the file never crashed within the bad file. Could I assume that parts are okay, like scripts, layouts, etc.? I know this is a loaded question, Lowell.
This is a conversation about the recovery log, Jacob.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe, yeah. My answer to the narrow part about copying XML and whether or not that's okay, the answer is no. Don't do that, especially if you're building a fresh one from scratch. Just there's no point to risking it. The longer one is you should do multiple recovers on the existing file so that you are minimizing your problems in the first place also. There's a process to doing that. You recover it. You want to rename the recover file, you recover it again, whatever. You're basically waiting until the little.
Go do a search for that because we've talked about this at great length and great detail about this process. There's a very specific process you can follow. The deal is with the XML, the serialization. Claris did their event the other day. We said, hey, you guys ever going to finish this? There's no ETA, if ever, for them to actually finish that feature.
They add like another % completion with each, 19.5 added one, 19.6.
I'll be retired by the time they finish it.
The engineering team is making a little improvement each time, but it needs to get done. Other than like, disaster recovery and rebuilding the file and like this kind of stuff that we talk about, there's a bunch of stuff that'll be enabled with transforming FileMaker files using XML tools that'll be available to us once they certify it. And until they complete it, we can't tell anybody to go do that because it doesn't. And there's like a huge value unlock that will happen at that point. But engineering priorities. So
we're going to do the Twitch one real first from Akelburn. Can 19.3 run on Windows Server 2018?
We addressed that. I believe that was the one we addressed at length.
Yeah.
There's Windows Server 2016, there's Windows Server 2019. Which are they asking about?
Windows Server 2016. Sorry, I misread.
So it's 19.3 on 2016. Yes, that was addressed previously.
Sorry, my bad.
Then he asked, can 19.6 work on Windows Server 2016?
No. Next question.
No.
No, next question. 19.6 is 2019, 2022.
Got it.
May it work? I'm not answering the question. Maybe. Don't do it. Get your stuff up to date. The newer versions have better defaults, and the newer versions of Windows Server, to be clear. Sorry, I should use all the words. The newer versions of Windows Server are better, faster. They update more quickly. They are more secure. They have better defaults. Please pay your licensing fee and update. Thanks.
Okay.
Public service announcement. There we go.
I'm
Yeah.
not getting the license to sync manual or otherwise. All relevant ports are open and I can't figure out why it won't sync. I've
Yep.
called Claris and they just asked about ports. And the only solution was to get a local license that doesn't need a sync. I'd rather get the syncable one. Any thoughts?
Yep. That is a problem I have observed since I've worked at RCC. No, there has never been a solution, assuming you don't have anything on your network that's blocking it. And if they've already talked to you about ports or domains or this kind of stuff, then you already have that open, and that's not the problem. I have servers that have been like that for years. They don't shut themselves or do anything silly like that. It's just annoying. I get emails about it on some of our customer servers. So we don't know. I've never found a correlation for it. Some servers do it, some don't. It doesn't seem to be license based. If you go far enough with Claris tech support, they'll tell you to blow out the server and reinstall. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it's, yeah. So
Jacob Taylor has a limited amount of magic available. Okay.
Yeah.
To reduce costs in cloud, you turn off on the VMs. Would that corrupt FileMaker files?
if you don't do it perfectly every single time, the answer to that question is yes, you will corrupt your database. Do not, capital D, capital N, attempt to save money on the cloud by shutting the machine off when you're not using it. Get a cheaper one. What I will tell you, if you were trying to, so one, you shouldn't try to save money in ways like that. You lose more, you increase your risk level in a way that's not, it's like if you're asking that question, it's not obvious to you that would cause mega issues with your solution and stuff like that. You will trying to do things like that, you will lose more money causing problems for yourself than you will save by the bill going down if you successfully do it every time. The thing that people mess up is to shut a FileMaker server down, you must safely close all of the databases, confirm they have been closed, shut at least probably the server down, if not the software also as an individual step. Shut FMS, shut the box, right? Or shut the VM, whatever. You have to do that perfectly every single time. So if you're doing this daily, whatever, right? Whatever you're trying to save
you don't
money.
have a life, because you don't have a life. That's all you do.
Yeah. And so you're just exchanging labor, your time, for probably a few dollars savings on a per whatever basis. And so if it's not a Cadillac server, like what the melting FileMaker cloud one we had, that was like $2 an hour or something.
It was like $200 an hour or something like that. But we
it was disgusting. It was so so we did that. And so actually in a situation like that, you could save more than a rounding error of dollars with a machine that's that expensive, right? So like even in that situation, it made sense. We still didn't do it. Why? Because I'm gonna mess it up once. And I'm going to blow up the database or crash it or something else, and then we're not going to have a demo box anymore.
All right, so there's questions about Amazon EC2, so I'm going to help with this a little bit. So I'm over here at EC2 land. I'm at AWS. How do I find, Jacob, if you can look at my screen as I'm sharing here, what do I find?
Yeah, Google EC2. That'll probably get you there faster.
Air pricing. All right, so this is what I want to get to, because David Angel goes, the price could triple if it was left on all the time. Okay, so let me just, David, you're a smart guy, so I'm going to let you do the math here, and then that way you understand the question. I could just answer it, but it'll be more impactful if you see it for yourself. So first off, free tier, don't even bother. Hello, everyone. If you do this and you call the live stream or call the RCC, we're going to instantly hang up on you. Spot pricing is kind of ditchy, twitchy, on demand. It's kind of like what we normally do, dedicated host, per second billing. This is not true. It's per millisecond billing, okay? And so price calculator. So here we're going to go to the price calculator. I haven't used this in a long time.
My estimate. So you want to find EC2. So probably scroll down or search in the page for EC2. Cloud, it might be up here at the top somewhere.
It should be. Oh, there it is right here.
Right
here. So it's next to Dynamo. Dynamo is not FileMaker, and we've had a conversation with Jesse Barnum about that, right? So different conversation. Ohio, shared instance. What do you want? A dedicated instance?
You'll have a shared instance. I know that doesn't sound correct, but that is what you want. Dedicated is Amazon's version of a dedicated server. I'm going to be polite and say it is a premium service. You will pay a premium price for it.
Okay, so then we have constant usage, okay? And number of instances, 1. and we want a T3. Oh, wait a minute. I guess
Got large, maybe.
I think it's in here.
They'll give you some
T3A. There we go. Number actually. Oh, there. Here we go. Here we go. Down here.
You're looking for that stuff.
That one. That's the one we want. T3A large. This is the one we recommend. Okay, and the on-demand hourly cost per hour is 7 cents per hour. Okay, so David, if you at 7 cents per hour, which is the way they bill for this, if you run it Monday through Friday for 8 hours, and there's 24 hours a day, and you forget to shut it off, yeah, it'll go up triple, right? So there you go. I wanted you folks to see how to do this. It's not so much me being snarky to David. I love David. David Learning, David Angel, the folks on Discord, you're really awesome people. I want you to see how to calculate this stuff. This is not the drive space that you need. This is not the upload or inload or download out of the Amazon data center. There's extra costs here. Jacob, can you approximately give us approximate cost of what a T3 large is about?
I'm also going to post a link in Discord. That's the thing that I use for instance price calculations. It does not include same thing or same set of qualifications. It doesn't include the disks or any of the other stuff, but it'll give you a better ballpark for like
here's your payment processes. So you can do 1 year, no upfront. That's a 1 year commitment. 3-year commitment, all that kind of stuff. So 1 year, no upfront. So that's like then you come down, you got EC2 and you want a T3A. There's T3 and T3As have better drives, SSDs on them. T3A large, 8 gigs.
The difference is AMD versus Intel.
Oh, okay. Is that what that is?
A is an AMD EPYC. The regular T3s are Intels.
Okay, good. So then RCC, we use some from my databases, T3 extra larges, right? But the RAM here is really a big deal. It's the processors and the RAM, right? So 8 gigs, we don't recommend anything below a T3 large anymore, like a medium and stuff. So we're just recommending large.
They're not, you can't do it safely.
And this helps.
I don't recommend it. The risk of something going like even 5% haywire and the operating system shooting something important to try and save itself is too high, so we don't do it. It still wasn't previously recommended. It's always been a large that you're supposed to have been using, right? That's always been Claris's official line, but previous versions of FileMaker Server, it was possible to get away with something like a medium if you just didn't do too much with it, right? Your solution wasn't super amazing and heavy and 57 bajillion server-side script, whatever, right? And you're not even using WebDirect. Yeah, fine, right? You can fit it previously on a medium. It's too risky now, capital R. So.
All right. Well, any other questions we have on the?
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. It seems much cheaper to have an on-prem server. Like a lot cheaper in the long run. Why do big companies like yours choose to use AWS instead? I know you have to do all the things to make sure the server is up, but it still seems weird that one would choose to go through the super high cost instead of a massively cheaper cost.
I can't get a 5 gigabit internet connection at my house.
And for us,
and that's what we have on Amazon. And when
we have to spin up a new server, we just click the button and say turn it on, and it comes up.
Yeah.
We don't have to buy the hardware and then sit there and
maintain it.
As we go through the configuration stuff. We can instantly spin up a box. So backup. If you can have a huge internet internet provider to your house with backup redundancy and backup batteries and backup generators, and you can buy a server that will always work perfectly and will not shit itself, then run it at your house. But those are a lot of ifs right there. It was if, like 4 ifs.
And those are a bunch of costs. A lot of people don't factor in all the other costs that go into maintaining server hardware. So, right, If the only thing that you're looking at is I'm going to go out and write a check for a Dell and a little bit of network hardware to run it or something like that, don't forget the internet connection, all the management of that, all the things that go into it, the battery backups, everything so that you actually have server resiliency. Those are They're not free, but those are actually the cheap parts of being in the cloud.
And you have
So-
Amazon, who spends a huge part of their budget with a team of people trying to keep the bad guys out of their network. Okay. Right. And so by default, like, for example, if someone decides to attack your server or do a denial of service attack against your server at your office, you're going to have to fight them off on your own, if you can even do that. If someone attacks Amazon's data center, your virtual instance, or your server in Amazon, Amazon has to raise shields on the entire starship and fight that off for you, because it's attacking their shit. So you actually get a lot of additional help and assistance. There's attacks that happen all the time you don't know about, that they're sitting there 24/7 around the clock fighting this stuff off, like knights and round tables and armor and swords, and constantly going on. So if you have a team to do that yourself. Now, I have my own FileMaker server in my office here. I'm using the zero-tier network. That being said, if someone wants to attack my home office and take down my Mac Mini server, and they can bombard my Comcast router with the network traffic to wipe it out, Comcast will be like, whatever. And then I just take my server and I go, no problem. I pick it up and I'll go somewhere else or do something else with it. But for a corporation, and you're down for a day or a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I don't know. It seems to me that it is cheaper.
Yeah, ransomware, correct. Yeah, and so that's the other thing. We have things we can do about ransomware in the cloud as well, that are efficient and effective. So
it's like the Jaws movie, right? The original Jaws, the one with Roy Schneider and that whole movie, and it was ad lib because they'd never seen the animatronic shark in the ocean, which was this big machine in the ocean, and it went swimming by with Steven Spielberg. And Roy Schneider, they had on clip, he goes, you're going to need a bigger boat, okay? If you knew how big the ransomware stuff was out there, and you knew how it was constantly circling your boat, no one would come out of their homes. It's scary. So you want someone, Amazon has a vested interest to help their stay free of ransomware. They really, at the end of the day, don't care about you, but they care about their data center, so they will do what they need to do to protect their data center. So by you kind of snuggling into their data center, you get a whole level of protection just from that.
You get free stuff from that, basically. Yep.
Yeah. So
there are reasons to host on site. We have a couple customers that do.
Yep.
I wouldn't tell them not to. The main reason, they have bad internet and they have people that are on site. And so, right, obvious problem. If you have bad internet and your server's out on the cloud somewhere, you're not going to have a good experience with that FileMaker application, just end of. So some businesses will make decisions like that. That particular customer essentially has a micro cloud in a little data center in a closet. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, if those of you enjoyed this show, you get to do it live because the recording is going to be sanitized and neutered by Mother Teresa. So it'll be like me and Jacob. Holy, holy, holy. That's us. Okay, back up. Hang on. Okay, when I tell my video people to edit video, that is exactly what I am thinking of, this right here. Without whacking yourself in the head. I'm sure that's the Monty Python moment right there, I'm sure. So of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.